In this video, we're going to talk about diatonic scales. Western music is basically built on diatonic scales. They have a sequence of tones and semitones in each octave. And often when we talk about a diatonic scale, we mean tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. This is called the major scale. There are lots of other types, but the thing is that any diatonic scale intrinsically has a particular structure in the pitch set, unlike the chromatic, which is all just semitones, or the whole tone scale, which is all just tones. So the three ways you could consider creating a diatonic scale. You can think of it as a subset of the chromatic scale, but actually this is backwards from a historical perspective because we started with diatonic scales and then expanded them to have extra notes. Another approach is to create a set of tones that emphasize the patterns of tones and semitones as opposed to small and large melodic leaps. And another way is to create a structure using just thirds and fifths. And this is a good way to create scales that will work well with sustained notes in harmony. Now, there's a problem. When we're dealing with diatonic scales, we have to choose 7 out of our 12 available notes. And if we were to stick with perfectly tuned intervals that have no beats, we run into problems. For example, say we had tuned our note so that C major was perfectly in tune, in which case the C to E ratio will be 386 cents. But say also we wanted to play an E major triad, so we would make sure we can tune our G sharp to also be perfectly in tune. So E to G sharp would be 386 cents. What if we also wanted to be able to play an A flat major, so we could tune our A flat 3 below the C4 to be 386 cents below? But then the low A flat is not 1200 cents or an octave below the G sharp. There's a 41 cent difference. If we would take the low A flat and then get its octave, our A flat and our G sharp would be different notes. So this discrepancy in tuning has got a name. It's called a comma. And it's a minute interval created from tuning one note in two different ways. So, looking at the same thing, but in terms of frequency ratios instead of cents, we've got 3 properly tuned major thirds, but they end up being an interval of 125/64, whereas we should have them being 128/64. So we've got a problem. So over the years, many approaches were taken. Some were physical, like build keyboards that had more than 12 keys per octave. There are still organs in existence that have this. Or we could optimize the tuning so one note works well and just avoid the other. The other thing is we could just tune for one note and just play the other one out of tune. Or we could make some sort of compromise tuning by tuning thirds larger than 386 cents. Often, now what we do is we make the major third 400 cents. We can try and work it out by, in our example, making our G sharp the same as A flat. So we can create a circle of major thirds. And if we were to do that, we have to take in our discrepancy somewhere. So somewhere our discrepancy, in this case 41 cents, will be there somewhere. We just got to decide which notes will be out. We have a similar problem with minor thirds. We have a similar problem with perfect fifths. So basically we cannot have a system where we can have perfectly tuned diatonic scales that can go to any key. In summary, it's impossible to tune 12 pitches so as to create all consonant intervals. We have to make some compromise in some way, and many tuning schemes have been tried. Now, run up the Tuning Jammer 2019, and this is a little PD patch which is optimized so that you can play in different tuning systems and you should be able to hear the effect. The instructions are there. Once you've played with a few different tuning systems, you can write what you've found. The following slides are only for your reference, and they have a little bit of information about the tuning systems that the Tuning Jammer has.